Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name's Matt Wakeling and thank you so much for joining me for this episode. We record them here in Sydney, Australia and Zoom them all around the wide world web thanks to iTunes and Stitcher and Libsyn or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, speaking of podcasts, last week, of course, we spoke to Greg Mara, who is an amazing guitar player with a great career, but he's also started a new podcast called the Iconoclast Music Podcast, and it's been great. I've been listening to a few more episodes this week, so I can't recommend enough that you check that out. Now, my guest today is Perry Ormsby from Ormsby Guitars, based in Perth in Western Australia. Perry's been making amazing custom guitars for the last 10 or so years, and in the last couple of years has expanded that production to make an offshore range, which is doing amazing things for his company. I'm not sure why it is, but I'm always fascinated by how people build up businesses and companies. I'm not business-minded myself at all, in the slightest. But I love hearing, the journeys, the mistakes, the successes, the redefining, and listening to Perry talk is amazing. The risk-taking, all that kind of thing. I've had some great guitar companies come on the podcast, Australian companies like Mayton, Charles Cillier Guitars here in Sydney, doing amazing things. I play a Pat Keegan guitar, so it was great to have Pat on the show. And now to have Perry is awesome. So hey, I hope you enjoy this interview with Perry Ormsby from Ormsby Guitars. Perry Ormsby, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, great to have you. You sound like you've been super busy. You've just gotten back from NAMM and back to work, as it were.
Yeah, got back from NAMM. So NAMM finished up, I think, the 22nd or the 23rd of January, and we got back on, I think, the 3rd of February. Mm-hmm. And then, what's today, the 15th, I guess. So, been back for 2 weeks and stuck, straight back into it. There's always that mad rush before NAMM.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then when you get back, it's like, great, we don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. And it's like, because we've got all the stuff that we had to put to the side to get onto the NAMM stuff. So it's just nuts. It's just, there's no break. It's constant, which is really cool because I'd rather be busy than not busy. And, even if we weren't busy, I'd be finding stuff to do. But yeah, it's non-stop. It's the last couple of years have been, I've always been busy. Really ever since I first started 12 years ago, but I'm that sort of guy that would rather work than not work.
Sure.
And I'll find things to do and I'll make sure that I've got work to do and really proactive like that. But the last couple of years has just gone to another level.
Yeah, wow.
And I've been trying to do less hours. It's working okay. But, we still do the same amount of like physical labour hours, but it's the time after work and before work that is limited,
Sure.
If you'd asked me a year ago what sort of hours, mate, I'd be up at 5 and I'd get home at 5 and I'd email till 10,
Wow, that's massive.
Now I try and, not do those hours because it's not good for you.
Yeah, sure.
And, it's that hard work that gets you to the point where you can sort of actually take a little bit more of a break as well,
Yeah,
we can pick and choose what we want to do now.
That's a great position to be in. What if we go back then to the beginning? You said, say, 12 or so years ago.
Yep.
I've read you've got a background in carpentry. How did you move from that into guitar building?
Okay, so in school I loved woodwork. Even before school, I was I'd go into my granddad's shed and build little things. Nothing important, nothing special. Just cutting bits of wood and gluing bits of wood and all that kinds of stuff. And as any 14-year-old or whatever would do.
Yeah.
Decided I really loved woodwork so much. I actually would go in before school and my woodwork teacher would let me make stuff, which was really cool. And then during the class, because I'd finished my work, I'd do the woodwork projects for one of the girls that was in the class because I thought, she'll really like me. And all it did was give her an opportunity to go and talk to all the other guys. So it didn't really work. And it took me about a year to work that out. But yeah, from there, that was in year 10. And then year 11, I wanted to do woodwork again. And they're like, well, we've only got 2 people that want to do it, so we're not going to do it. And I was devastated. So I did night school, TAFE night school, just woodwork, general woodwork.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Which was cool. And then from there, I decided that school's not really my thing, and I don't need year 12 to be a carpenter. Mm-hmm. So, I enrolled in TAFE, did a pre-apprenticeship in carpentry and joinery. That's 1 year of full-time studies.
Okay, cool.
And then that supposedly gives you a year off your apprenticeship, if you know what I mean, once you get a job.
Great.
So, yeah, straight out of that, got a job working as a roof carpenter. And realised pretty quickly that this is not what I want to do. It's carpentry is actually like the pre-apprenticeship carpentry and joinery. You'd still be making boxes and dovetail joins and furniture, and you'd make little scale models of houses so that you can kind of see how it all goes together. You know, about the size of a dog kennel scaled. But there was still that furniture aspect of it and the fine woodworking side of things. But of course, being a roof carpenter, it's, mate, if you cut that bit of wood and it's, 10 mil too long, don't worry about it, it's fine. Or if it's got a 10 mil gap, don't worry about it, it's fine.
Sure.
There was just nothing there that made my brain sort of attracted to it. But I stuck with it and finished off all of the theory side of things. So I still went to TAFE as you would do normally as an apprentice. Got my trade certificate, finished up that apprenticeship, I think, a year and 4 months early because of my grades. And then the very next day after getting my trade certificate, I started again doing cabinet making. And that was much, much more suited to what I wanted to do.
Okay,
I was careful with my employer this time. I decided to, I wasn't going to get into somewhere that just did woodwork. I wanted somewhere that did stuff that was interesting. And found a little cabinet shop that made, they did the normal kitchens and stuff like that. But also they would do a lot of solid timber work, or they might do the fancy, there might be a government tender for reception desks for a new private hospital or whatever it is. But they'd get some of those interesting jobs. And the good thing was that some of the other guys that worked there weren't interested in doing that work. So that'd get given to me.
Okay.
So I'd be making, big curved reception desks out of, elm burl and maple burls and all sorts of stuff like that. And, or it might be just a coffee table that has a projector screen, projector thing inside it that pops up on a mechanical runner, and I'd have to work out how to do it, And that was my apprenticeship, and finished that off. I got 2 years, I think, cut off that apprenticeship, once again, because I had the prior learning and also the grades.
Excellent.
And actually got, I didn't realise this actually at the time, like I did pretty well. And I absolutely loved what I was doing. There was no other thing on earth that I wanted to do, you know what I mean? But it wasn't until maybe 5 years ago that I went to one of the careers expos and I saw my old TAFE lecturer, and he's like, "Oh, you're the guy that got the top marks in the state." And I'm like, "Oh, did I?" Like I knew I did well. I got nominated for Apprentice of the Year and stuff, but I didn't even bother filling in the forms. You know what I mean? Like you got to fill in the form to proceed. And I'm like, I can't be bothered. I'm just doing my job, But yeah, it wasn't until I actually went back and found all my old reports, and I got 96% average for the year.
Wow.
And at the time, I never even bothered to look. I knew I'd passed. I just wasn't interested. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't matter to me what the grades were. I just had the coolest job on earth,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. And that actually got us, a few years ago when I wanted to have an apprentice, they're like, "No, you can't have an apprentice guitar maker. There's no such thing." And got all these roadblocks, and eventually I just rang up my old lecturer and said, "I want to do this." And he's like, "Mate, excellent, we'll make it happen," because there's no one really that has any training anymore, because they're all learning to build cabinets with melamine and chipboard, and no one knows how to do a dovetail anymore. And we really want people to learn that sort of stuff. So we're definitely going to have a woodwork-based apprenticeship, even if it's not cabinet making. We'll just make it cabinet making and convert it across to guitar making. So we're able to get that through.
That's brilliant. That's
which
so
is
good.
Cool.
Yeah, nice.
But there's so much red tape. I don't know that it's a lot of red tape. We've got 2 apprentices now, but I don't know if we want to do it again because of the amount of red tape.
Okay.
It's just too difficult to employ someone like that on that sort of system now,
Sure.
But yeah, so I can't even remember what the question was.
So
now,
we're talking about. So you're into fine carpentry and doing really great, loving it. When did you end up turning to guitars, using these skills to make instruments?
All right, so cabinet making was great, and then I realised, I'm never going to get anywhere in my life on these wages, and I got offered $1 extra an hour to go and work at another cabinet shop working on a computer, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I sit in air conditioning all day, and I get $1 an hour more. Yeah. That's like $38 a week. So I took it, and I learned computer-aided. Not CAD, but 3D computer modeling.
Okay, yeah.
It was kind of CAD, but it's not really. But my role was to do quotes and run the production floor. So I'd have to order all the materials, teach the guys on the floor what they're building, and then produce the cutting lists and make sure everything. So I'd do the scheduling and handle the production. And that was pretty cool for a while. And then I got offered another job doing the same thing for a lot more money, and it's like, yeah, that's really cool. And I just developed all these systems to make it so much more efficient, so I didn't have to work, because by this time I wasn't loving my job.
Sure.
I was missing the chisels.
Yeah, right.
But
the actual work of it.
Yeah. So I was the worst employee. I'd go out of my way to do nothing. So I've developed all these ways that I can make my job more streamlined and not actually do anything. And of course, that meant my hours dropped. And then one day I realized that, man, I'm just wasting my life. I don't want to do this anymore. I'd made my first guitar by that point, just as a, just as a hobby kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
And because I was just so keen to do some woodwork of some sort, and made that. And I had a couple of people that were like, oh yeah, can you make me one of them? So I'm like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a pretty cool job.
Nice. So early on, people were picking up that you were putting together cool guitars.
I built the first guitar, and I guess the term blog wasn't used back then, but it was, I guess, a blog. It was just like a little diary that I'd update every 3 days of what I was doing, and some people saw it, and I was posting on some guitar making groups and stuff like that, and I had obviously had the woodwork background, so I was able to get involved and sort of talk about what I knew and what I was bringing across to guitar making from a cabinet making perspective.
Yeah, cool.
So I guess there were a few people that were like, okay, well, this guy knows how to use a router, and whatever. But yeah, some guy just from Florida actually messaged me one day and said, oh, how much would something like that cost? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I don't really do this for a living, but I'd love to, and I think I put the address on the website because I wanted to make it look like I was a guitar maker. Yeah. And this money order rocked up in the mail from Florida with $1,000, and it's like a little note. I hope this is enough of a deposit, but if you need more, let me know.
Wow.
Yeah, but I kind of like that made me think maybe this is a thing, and I don't know, maybe a month later, I'd started my second guitar, and I thought, I told this guy, look, it's going to take a year because I'm really busy, and I thought that's going to give me heaps of time to make another bunch of guitars and then really hone my skills a bit more, and then I'll build his,
Okay, yeah.
And as any guitar maker starting out, they're so excited to get their first order, it's the biggest thing on earth,
Fantastic.
But yeah, I was sitting there one day, and I decided I wasn't going to work that day, and I was counting how many drawings I'd done for my employer over the last 5 years, and I counted 1,800 kitchen designs, and I'm just like, this is bad, I hate this job. And I decided I would spend another afternoon writing a resignation letter, because that's what I did when I was bored. I'd write it all out on paper and it'd make me feel better, you know. And my girlfriend at the time, it rang up and said, "Oh, you know how you want to quit your job?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I just got a pay rise of $27,000 a year."
Wow.
And I was earning $28,000 a year at the time. And she said, "If you want to quit your job, just quit your job." So I did. I was in the middle of writing another one of my fake resignation letters, and all I did was just I quickly typed up the last couple of lines and printed it out and handed it to my boss and said, "I'll see you later." And that's when I realized, oh, what am I doing? You know, and I actually came in for 3 days straight after that to clean out my desk, because it took me so long because I didn't want to leave after that. You know what I mean? It was like George Costanza going out on the big, you know, and then realizing, oh, maybe no one will notice. But at that time, my parents had bought a factory unit to store their caravans that they used to hire out.
Okay,
and there was a little office, right? There was an office space there. And I'd already decided that I'm going to take over this factory unit and rebuild a car. So I'd kind of already grabbed the office and I'd put some workbenches in there. So, of course, I had this little space, and I said to my folks, you know, do you reckon I can just do some woodwork and stuff? And they're like, yeah, no worries. And it just went from there. Within the first week at one of the local stores, I was friendly with the guitar tech, and he's like, "Oh, we've got a broken headstock. Do you reckon you can fix it? How do you do it?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing." Fixed it up, lacquered it, did a beautiful job. They used that on their website as an example of the work that they can do.
Uh-huh.
And then it just went from there. Anything that needed a power tool, they would send to me. And, you know, it took a year to start getting a bit of a name out there for repairs and stuff. But there weren't a lot of guys out there. There was only 3 guys in Perth doing it.
Okay.
So it was quite easy. One guy had semi-retired recently. So there was that workload that could be taken on. And, you know, I'd just book jobs in, and if I needed help, I'd contact someone to give me a hand, you know what I mean? And most of the time you'd get a, "No, I'm not helping you," or sometimes you would get a friendly person, you know. But there was a lot of that competition where people were worried about someone new entering the market. But slowly and surely I built a name up for myself, and we ended up doing a lot more repairs than anyone in the state. Within a few years, you know, we were doing 30, 40 guitars a week. And at the same time, I'm building guitars.
Yeah.
You know, I think I built a couple of guitars the first year and maybe 3 or 4 the second year, and slowly up from there. But, of course, the name starts to get out there a little bit, and, you know, we've got some international orders, and that was really cool, and that added a bit of prestige kind of thing, and people are like, "Oh, he sells guitars to America, he must be good," you know. And it just sort of went from there. Ended up, you know, outgrowing the little space that my parents gave me, and sold my house because I thought I'm not going to be able to get the machines I want, because you kind of don't earn enough money, you know what I mean? So I'll sell my house. I was lucky to have a house, so I sold that, and that gave me 55 grand, and I spent half of that on machines, and half of it went to rent for the next 18 months in a decent factory unit, and that's when I realized, you know, this really actually can be a thing if we want it to be a thing. And then it was a case of, okay, how do I make it a thing? You know, how do we actually become a brand? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And it did take me quite a while to work that out, because if you don't have money, you can't expand. And, of course, as a luthier with a factory unit, which, of course, was probably the worst decision I ever made, because most guys just work from home and there's, you know, no rent or no business expenses or whatever.
Sure. Yeah,
you know, we're forking out a couple of grand a month just in rent. And, you know, I took someone on to help me with repair work. But, you know, at the end of the day, after a year of that, I realized I'm paying him more wages than what he's earning for me.
Yeah.
So I was going backwards, and it all turned around basically when I was given an opportunity by some friends to house sit for 18 months. And part of their property, that they lived on what's called a composite A, which is a residential area, but you're allowed to run a commercial or industrial business from the same block.
Oh, okay. Yep, great.
And they're always on it's a block of land in between an industrial zone and a residential zone. So there's always one side of the street that's composite A. And they had a massive shed on there, and I'm like, do you mind if I work out of the shed? No, we've got a big, extensive muscle car collection, and we want you here 24/7 looking after it, making sure no one steals them. So I'm like, great, I've got a year at least of no rent, and I can use that money and save up. So that's what I did. And,
okay. And when's this, Perry? What year is this?
That would have been 2009.
Okay.
So that's when I started to go, right, this can be a thing. I knew then that, okay, the time's going to come where we have a proper business. You know, this isn't just some dude mucking around with guitars. It's a proper thing. And I can now see how it's going to happen because we've been given this opportunity. And from there, we've got my goal was get a house again and then pay it down as much as possible and then use the equity to expand. And that's exactly what we did. And that then in 2015 became the GDR series. That all that time was put into that to make that a thing to really push us to the next level.
Wow.
And it has, we've it's been mind blowing how well received those guitars have been. I know they're good, but you kind of hope everyone else does as well.
Uh-huh.
The response we've had has been phenomenal.
That's brilliant. So just to make clear, so you're essentially working as a custom shop doing one-off custom orders for a long time, and your repairs.
Yep.
Now your GTR line, that's your production model.
Yes.
That's being manufactured by, is it World Instruments, I think, in Korea? That's
correct, in South Korea, yep.
Awesome. And that's the same place that makes like PRS SE guitars, which are beautifully built guitars.
Yep, the high-end Schecters.
Yeah.
And the more expensive LTDs as well.
Okay, cool.
And they're what I noticed, and I probably would never have been able to choose a factory if I didn't have the repair history.
Okay.
But of course, 10 years of doing repairs and doing a lot of warranties for all of the companies as well, you start to see patterns of certain things like particular, like for example, Epiphones are built in numerous factories.
Yeah, sure.
And certain serial numbers, they start off with maybe E or U or whatever.
Yep.
You'll notice that certain guitars have things always wrong with them, or certain things are always done really, really well. So it might be a $400 guitar, but they've done that part of it really well, and you then see 50 of them over the next 2 years, and you notice that same thing reoccurring, and you kind of make a little mental note. It goes into your memory. But what I started to notice was that certain guitars would come in, and they're coming in for a service, but they're not coming in for repairs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
sure.
As a repairer, you see lots of things like, it needs a fret level, or this sort of thing. But there were certain brands that you just see a lot less of that, and that the fit and finish was always seemed to be better value than what the guitar was worth.
Yeah, right.
And I just started a little logbook, and any time that a guitar came in that I thought was really cool, I made notes about it, tried to work out the model number and the serial number and all that kind of stuff, and I'd just jot it down. And any guitars that were average, I'd write them down, and any guitars that were really kind of not very good at all, I'd write them down. And what that gave me was 3 different categories, and then from there I go, right, the really good stuff, who's making all this stuff? And that's when we realized that 90% of those guitars that I was writing down were good, were coming out of World Music.
Wow,
and
cool.
Then we have to find World Music, which is not as easy as you think. They don't advertise. They don't sell direct to people. They don't have a website. They don't have a phone number listed anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it took a bit of time to find them, and then it took time to work together with them on bringing together a model. You know what I mean? And that whole process of, right, we're going ahead with this, to now we can tell the public about this, was about a year. Maybe it was probably 18 months actually. There was a lot of planning beforehand, but once we went ahead, we did hit some snags. The whole management team, the bulk of the management team had some issues and were, removed from the business right as our stuff was going into production.
Oh, okay, wow.
And that was a nightmare, because I've got all of a sudden a couple of hundred clients that are all anxious on this new project that I've spent 2 years working on. And then management tells me that they've left and it didn't go too well and there's going to be lots of legal action, but come with us to this new factory we're starting. It literally, that happened 3 days before our production was to start, and that I was going to fly in to watch it all happen.
Okay.
In the end, it's all been fine. The good people stayed, and they, that they've rebuilt from then. It was a little bit of a dark time in their history, I guess, but they're even better now than what they were a couple of years ago. It's crazy to be working with them, and I feel really, really privileged. It's amazing. It's something that in my hopes and dreams, I didn't dream this big. And to see it all come together, and now we're getting the opportunities that we are getting as a company. It's really amazing.
That's brilliant.
And I always say, if you want something, just go for it. And I did actually do that, and it's testament that if you want something bad enough, just go out and get it. Whether that's tuition or a career or goals in life.
Sure.
Put your head down and ass up and go for it.
That's great. That's awesome. There's plenty of great guitar builders in Australia, and but I can't think of any. There might be some, you might know, but I can't think of anyone who has actually decided to put together a high quality offshore line and go to all the work to take their company to that sort of level beyond the sort of a custom shop or working out of a garage or working out of a small factory.
I speak to a lot of guitar makers. Every year for the last 10 or 12 years, we have traveled overseas, and I always make a point of going to meet who is local to that area that we're going to. So whether that's New York or Cleveland or LA or Italy or wherever, I like to go and visit and see and talk to people, right? And just because I'm still a guitar nerd, right? So I see and speak to a lot of luthiers, and we've also, with our guitar making courses over the years, trained a lot of people, over 150 guys, trained them how to build guitars. So I speak to a lot of these guys, and a lot of these luthiers look up to us because we're doing something a little bit different than Strat knockoffs and Tele knockoffs and stuff like that. So we get a lot of communication, and I think that there's this mentality that if you're a guitar maker, the best way to make $1 million is to start off with an inheritance of 2 million and just blow $1 million on wood.
Just knock it off.
And if you go to any guitar forums and you ask the question, I would love to be a guitar maker, can you tell me if there's a way to make money doing this? It's 95% negative. And, I've been at this for 30 years. I'm glad I never quit my job, blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
blah.
Right, sure.
But I think a lot of luthiers have an artist's perspective rather than a business perspective.
Sure.
If you know what I mean? Like, I look at it and, I feel as though I'm a little bit of an artist kind of thing. But at the same time, I feel I'm a little bit more grounded with cash flow and, what is the goal here? Like, we have 2-year goals. We have 1-year goals, 6-month goal, 9-month goals, 3 months, 1 month, 2 week, 1 week. You know what I mean? So we know what our goals are for all those periods most of the time. And I don't think a lot of guitar makers are like that. They're just like, oh, we're hoping the next job comes in. But they're not doing much about it. And that's a mindset thing. You know what I mean? Some guys are happy to stay in the one job for their entire working life. Other guys want to progress up the corporate ladder, or, it's different. People have different goals and wants and needs and stuff like that. And for me, I decided, man, it's more. I just want to prove some people wrong. I want to prove to people wrong that said I could never do it, or that there's no way you can really get anywhere as a guitar maker in life. You know what I mean? You'll always be driving an old car and renting a home, and I want something bigger than that, you know. And I think that I can do it. So why not give it a go?
Why not give it a crack?
And if it doesn't work out, well, at least I get some cool stories from when I'm telling the grandkids. You know what I mean?
That's great, man. That's awesome.
It's you know, it's like it's almost like bands as well. You see bands, and some of them are like, yeah, it's the guys that treat it like it's a business, and that they it's not that they're getting into it to make money. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're considering what they're doing is potentially a business rather than a hobby, and pushing it in that direction, and knowing that they need a publicist, and knowing that they need a manager, and knowing that they need to have this amount of money before they can do this type of tour, or knowing that this type of merch sells, knowing how to market that merch and encourage people to buy some to help pay for the flights. And it's those guys that always seem to be more successful than... There's more stories like that than there are of some guy just getting picked up being a busker on the side of the street, and he gets offered $1 million deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
You've got to go out and you've got to want it. And from my experience, it's the guys that when there's a band that has that mindset, and there's two members that are like that, they're gonna get somewhere. And you know what I mean? It may not be a platinum record sales, but they're gonna have at least got closer than the people that, you know, complain about the cost of rehearsal space.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Just that fingers crossed versus having a very definite plan.
Yeah. I can't play my guitar because I've got my fingers crossed. You know, I just think, you know, if you've got an idea and a dream, mate, do whatever you can to make it happen. My parents, they've always run their business, so I come from that perspective where that's all I've ever seen is that they run their own business and they make their own way, and they don't rely on anyone to provide them with their living, and you know, and I kind of like that.
Kind of pick that up, yeah.
Fantastic. You know, it's been drummed into me since I was 1. You know, so that's how I don't know any different. You know.
Yep. Awesome, man. That's great, and it's totally true what you're saying. Like the musicians I talk to, there's a reason why they're getting a lot of work. It's because they're really good, because they've worked really hard. They just weren't lucky got a good gig. They were actually, even if they landed the good gig, they were good enough to back it up, and also have the business smarts to keep the career moving.
Luck is absolutely a massive part of it, you know, but the harder you work, the more chances are that you're going to get lucky, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, that's my view on it anyway.
That's cool, man. That's so good. That's inspiring. I love it. Hey, might talk about some guitar design ideas.
Sure. Yep.
One of the most striking designs that is on a lot of your guitars, and I've got the feeling you've talked about this a lot, is the multi-scale system. Now, my first recollection of a guitar with this kind of idea was probably the Novak's guitars in the 90s, but I've actually read you came at it from a really different place. Could you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so I had... one of the other reasons why I got into making guitars is because I'm a terrible guitar player, right? And even worse than that is I had RSI, or carpal tunnel syndrome. So even when I was motivated to play, I literally couldn't for very long before my arm would be in a lot of pain. But I still loved guitars. I still had all my guitars sitting in my room and out on display and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome.
And of course, when I got into building guitars, I was like, oh, this is fucking great. I still get to be like a guitar guy. I just can't really play them very well. And, you know, but what happened was I started to think of ideas of, you know, what can I do to make this work better? Oh, thinner necks. And that just made it worse.
Okay, sure.
And that's where I realized, fatter neck actually helps me out with that. That's really cool. But then I saw, I think it was a Rickenbacker, and it had angled frets.
Oh, yep.
So the nut was angled, maybe not as extreme as the nuts that we do.
Sure.
But it was, all the frets were still parallel to each other.
So it wasn't, relative along the whole body. I've seen those ones.
I think it was even a bass. I don't even think it was a guitar. I think it was just a bass. But I saw that, and that made me think, oh, yeah, cool, you know, and that just sort of went in the bank. And then I had a guy that wanted a baritone. And of course, I don't know what a fucking baritone is. It's just, you know, what is this thing? They're not really available to buy. What is this? So I made him this baritone. I realized that man, if you tune that baritone with normal strings in E, that sounds amazing, right?
Cool.
And that's exactly what he wanted it for. He wanted this big sounding guitar. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then one day I realized, those two things, man, imagine that. That'd look pretty cool. And then this client came back to me and said, oh, look, the baritone's really cool, but it's really hard to play solos on it because the strings are too tight and and the frets are too far apart and the neck's longer and all that. And it just, in my head, it just came up with this picture of this fanned arrangement. And I'm like, man, I got to do that. And this was all within a year of me building my first guitar, or actually starting the business.
Okay. Yep.
And from that point forwards, I did as much research as I could. I got all my maths books from school and did all the formulas and stuff,
cool.
and realized this is actually going to work. But I don't have any money and I can't make a prototype. And it's multiple scale links, so I'm going to call it a multi-scale. And I just had drawings of it in the workshop, and it wasn't until like a couple of years later I was showing this guy, and I'm like, oh, you should get a multi-scale, hoping that someone will one day buy one. And the guy's like, oh, that looks like Fan's Frets. I'm like, oh, that's a heaps better name. So I got on Google, I'm like, Fan Fret Guitars. Oh, someone's doing them. Novak's doing them. So I found the patent, and his guitars were, at the time, a straight bridge fanning out to an angled nut.
Okay.
And I looked at the patent and I worked out his method of doing them, and I'm like, man, this is all wrong. This to me, it was all wrong. It was just all the frets were going to a converging point, which is not going to help with intonation. Because I'd done I'd spent years redrawing this same thing, trying to make it perfect. And that's when I thought, oh, well, at least I've now got a reference point. And I started asking around for people that had a Novak fan fret. And a couple of people came forward and said, yeah, it's great. It feels good. Doesn't intonate as well as my Strat.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of put it to the side for a couple of years and then came back to it and realized, the way that I was laying out the frets was absolutely different and does actually improve intonation. Surely, if I could just build this thing. And once again, no one was interested. And it wasn't until 2008 or 2009.
Okay.
Had a client, and he said, look, I tell you what, I'll pay for it. You build the prototype. If it's good, I keep it. If it's not, you just make me a normal guitar. I'm like, okay, well, basically that's 2 guitars for 1. Yep, cool, I'll take that offer. Let's do it. And we built the first one. It came out mint. And then from there, I think we built a couple more late that year.
Yep.
Took another 9 months or something for someone else to buy one. And then 6 months, and then 3 months, and then, okay, now half of our orders are for multi-scales.
Wow. Yep.
And then it got to the point where I'm like, let's do a run of guitars and not even offer normal scale.
Okay. Yeah.
And it just went from there. And now it is literally, of all the customs we've got on order now, I think we've got 2 standard fret jobs.
Yeah.
To do.
And that's against how many multi-scales?
We'll put it this way, we don't offer standard scale lengths on the GDR range at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, wow.
We did for one production run, and I think we sold 15.
Really? Wow.
Versus 486.
Okay.
So, yeah. I mean, when you get down to it, you can buy a standard scale length guitar from a shop any day of the week in any colour. Sure. So for us, that's not a point of difference.
Yeah.
But being multi-scale is. And I love it. I think it works beautifully for our clients and the type of music they play. Because of the extended scale length, it has a higher tension for the strings if you use the same strings. And obviously if you use fatter strings, you can get even more tension. And a lot of guys use fatter strings to get a bigger sound. And it's not necessarily the diameter of the string that gives you that bigger sound. It's the extra tension required to get that thicker string to that same pitch. So a 46 gauge tuned to E versus a 56 tuned to E, the 56 is going to be under a higher tension.
Yeah, sure.
It's also a bigger mass, but it's under a higher tension. But of course, if you look at any other type of instrument, and I'm talking piano, harp, even a xylophone, a set of drums, a whistle, even a clarinet versus whatever's the bigger version of that, or a smaller one would be, let's say, a recorder or a flute or whatever. If you want a bigger sound and a deeper bass, you use a bigger object.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big cymbals versus little cymbals, pipe organs. Jump on the end of a hose and blow a sound down it. The longer that is, the deeper it sounds at the other end. Or the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's when I realised,
Cool.
well, why are guitars about the only instrument where the bigger, fatter, bassier notes are not a bigger, fatter, bassier object?
Like a longer string, literally.
Yeah.
Well, a piano's got a longer bass end as well.
Exactly. Look at a piano. Look at a harp. Put a piano on its end. It's a harp.
Yeah.
Put it doesn't matter what it is. A big trumpet versus a little trumpet, or I don't even know if they come in different sizes, but you know what I'm saying. A big bass drum versus a snare.
Sure.
Everything. A big block of metal, hit it with a hammer versus a little block of metal, and hear the difference in sound. And that's when I realised, well, okay, not only are we using a bigger object, but to tune to that same pitch, the longer the string is, the more tension you need. And it's the tension, which we worked out, is what gives you the nice tone. It's not the fatter strings and a wider section of string going through the magnetic field of the pickups. It's the higher tension sounds nicer.
Yeah,
and that's
cool.
why a grand piano sounds better than a baby grand piano. And why a big speaker sounds better than a little speaker for a subwoofer. You need that bigger object. So it all went from there, and
cool.
Just haven't looked back. It's been a crazy ride. We had a lot of guitar makers were very I don't know why they felt the need that they needed to tell me I was going down the wrong direction, but they did, and I just stuck with it. I believed in it. I'd done the research, I'd done the work, and now freaking everyone's doing them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's become almost ubiquitous for some ranges of guitars. Yeah.
Well, an example is last year, so 2016 at NAMM, we had a little pitch on what are these what's these frets, what's going on there, and then we'd had this 45-second thing that we say that explains 90% of what we need to say.
Okay. Yep.
In a concise, easy to it's our little pitch, right? Little technical sales pitch, and I answered that question hundreds of times. And at the end of each night, my friend Sully, who was on the podcast not long ago too, wasn't he?
Yeah. We talked to Sully. Yeah.
We would revise this little pitch to try and get it down in time to make it more efficient, because there was that many people asking. I mean, we're not talking, we're talking about hundreds of times a day.
Yeah, wow.
This year at NAMM, there was 7 of us on the stand.
Yeah.
And on the Sunday night, I realised, hey, wait, I haven't answered that question this whole entire time. Nobody has asked me what are these, what's going on with these frets.
Everyone's getting
so I asked the staff and Sully, how many people have been asked? Oh, you've got to ask twice. You've got to ask once. Six people asked that question at NAMM this year, whereas it was hundreds last year, and it's just become a genuine thing now. Yeah, it's crazy. It's I just wish I had the painting on it.
Hey, when did you realise that you needed to angle the bridge? I find that really interesting.
Oh, straight away.
Oh, okay.
Because
okay.
If everything fans, I mean, when you're doing your repair work, you know that a bridge has to be located in a certain spot, or the saddles don't line up and that kind of stuff. And when I designed the first one, I didn't even think of what anyone else had done, because I hadn't seen the Novak stuff.
Okay.
And I just thought of it like a piano. And I know what that baritone that was 27.5 inch sounded like, and I wanted that bass. Okay, so if we angle the nut 2 inches, you wouldn't be able to play that guitar. But if we bring it back a bit and angle the other side, well, maybe I'll have to make a bridge for that, Yeah. But we'll make it work. And then from there, it's like, right, how much angle? Do we make it even? And then I realized, why don't I just look at guitarists and see how they hold their guitar? So I did. I go on Google and we look at photos of guitars, and I had clients come in and I'd ask them to stand there and hold an E chord, and I worked out, okay, the ninth fret is where their hand is naturally hanging when they're not playing. So that would be the most logical place to have the normal straight fret, because their arm is on a straight line. Their wrist doesn't need to bend. So if we keep that the middle point and then move the angles either side, even them out so that they're right, what happens there? Okay, look at the bridge. What angle can we go on the bridge of the nut? We can do whatever we want, but look at the angle that your forearm comes down in on a Strat and the Les Paul, etc. Look at that angle. That's coming down at a certain angle. So if we make the bridge that same angle, that way you don't have to bend your wrist back when you're palm muting.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Wouldn't that be more natural? We've learnt, if we just considered that we've learnt to play guitars that weren't designed for humans, they were just designed, and we look at it from a perspective of where is your hands, what angle is your arm coming in, where's the natural resting position of your left hand, your fretting hand, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, it just worked itself out. I mean, that's a year of going back and thinking about it and drawing something else and making a note and leaving it for another week and coming back and going, yeah, that was a silly idea, and go and do this instead. But when you tie it all together, it just works.
That's awesome.
And what you've got now is you've got guitar makers that have, and I'm not knocking them, but they look at a multi-scale and they go, right, well, we're going to do less of a fan so that it's more suitable for people who have never tried one. Mm-hmm. So they do less of a fan to the point where it's not worth having, or they'll not consider where the neutral fret needs to be. And the neutral fret on our guitars is ninth, and that doesn't mean it's suitable for an Ibanez or a Kiesel or any other brand, because where we put our strap buttons in relation to the neck, the ninth fret works for us. And if we do a different model and a different design, then maybe that neutral fret that's straight needs to move. If it was a flying V, the neck's going to hang out in a different spot, so maybe the neutral fret needs to come down to the 12th, you know? So all of that kind of stuff we already built into it. And with years of not getting any sales, that gives you lots of times to revise something because it's not right, you know what I mean?
Right. Awesome.
And then when the first one got built, we haven't changed that layout since. It was perfect the first time.
Cool.
Yeah, it just worked, you know? But hundreds of hours of thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. Love it. Hey, tell me about the are you calling it the semi-custom shop line? The new thing you've got going on with Grover Jackson?
Yeah. So Grover, if it wasn't for Grover Jackson or Paul Reed Smith, I probably wouldn't have thought about making guitars for a living. Like, you know, like most guitarists, they're just there. But Grover, you know, everything they made was custom just about, or at least had custom paint jobs, you know?
Yeah, cool.
And Randy Rhoads is my hero, and there's always the story about he needed this special guitar, and he went to this guy and they designed it and he made it, and I'm like, oh man, that'd be a cool job, you know? And of course, Paul Reed Smith, I remember seeing my first Paul Reed Smith with the Birds, and I'm just like blown away. No idea what is this? What is this thing, man? It's just like art. So of course I've always looked up to those two guys, and it was actually Sully from Sully Guitars that introduced me to Grover. And he met Grover through a project that he was doing years and years ago, in regards to the re-releasing some Jackson models, and he sort of talked to Grover and organised that for a forum that we're doing a group buy. But got to meet Grover and talk stuff, and we got along really well, and it was really cool to meet this guy that, you know, I've always looked up to, and it was a bit crazy because I still have like a poster of Grover in my little collection of memorabilia or whatever.
Nice.
And I've got my old catalogs, my Jackson catalogs, and of course Grover's got dark hair, and he's, you know, it was 1988, right?
Yeah, sure.
And of course I don't think, oh yeah, that's 30 years ago. I just think that's Grover Jackson. And of course, when I met him, I'm like, oh, he's like my granddad. It's like, that was 30. I'm still remembering him from 30 years ago, you know? But yeah, he was such a cool guy, and he is still a guitar nerd, which I love. Because a lot of the older guitar makers I've met, just they're not guitar nerds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he still is. You know, he still wants to talk to you about guitars.
Great.
And yeah, because he showed us his shop, and I noticed that, hey man, like, I noticed there's all these other guitars here. What's going on there? Oh, we do OEM for a lot of brands, you know, and we're doing all of the Washburn customs and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm like, that'd be really cool if we could do something like that. And he's like, yep, cool. What do you want done? Wow. You know, and cool, it was as easy as that. Yeah. And of course, Sully at the same time was thinking the same thing, because Sully and I are pretty much just like brothers from another mother. We have the same interests. Everything is the same. We started in the same year building guitars. Wow, cool. He contacted me to contract work to me back in 2005, and you know, we've always sort of followed each other and been friends, I guess, through multiple different hobbies and stuff that we've just seemed to find each other in. Yeah, so I've known Sully even before the guitar making days, and we both just said, this is a no-brainer. We get to work with this dude that we love, and how cool is that, you know? And what an amazing thing to have an opportunity to do. And of course, Sully was ready to move forwards on it first, so he's had his first production come out, and they're fantastic guitars. They're really nice. They look amazing. They're beautiful, man. Yeah, they're really nice. And we want to do the same thing. The only problem is, we just don't know what to do. So we were going to do our normal hype machine models. Yeah. But then it's like, oh, yeah, you know what? We're doing them out of Korea, and we're doing them as handmade Australian stuff. Do we really need an in-between model that's not really in-between, because they're still going to be up there in price? Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So is there really much point in doing that? Or do we do, you know, ever-tuned bridges and do straight scales? Well, nobody really wants that model, you know? Yeah. All right, well, what about if we did this? So we've kind of decided what we're going to do, and it's going to be something different to what we normally do. Okay. But it's still going to have a little bit of the Ormsby flavour. Yeah. But, yeah, maybe just not something that you're used to seeing from us. Okay. And we're bringing a few models in this year that are like that. Cool. And I don't know if it's... I mean, people think that we just make guitars for metal guys. We don't. It's just that they're the ones that get shared around the most. Yeah, okay. But you know, and I love making those guitars, but I kind of want to do something different. Sure. And add to the palette, I guess. And so we're bringing out some new models this year that are going to be more, I don't know, less over the top, I guess. Okay. And more suitable for... Because we've got a lot of clients that would love to work with us, but they don't want a metal-looking guitar. Yeah, sure. And it's like, well, yeah, we can do it, but we're so busy with this other stuff. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? It kind of gets pushed to the back. So we decided, well, let's do it. This year we're going to bring out, I think it's... we brought out the Futura model, and we've got another 3 or 4 that are kind of a little bit more mainstream, but still got you can still tell they're one of ours. But a guy can easily grab it and go to a gig and play the Beatles, or you know what I mean? It's not going to be death and destruction and you know, all that kind of stuff. Cool. So yeah, that's really cool. And Grover will do one of those, you know. But fantastic. with Grover, he's got his he builds all the Friedman guitars. Yeah. That has taken off for him too, which is really great. Yeah, they look really cool. Yeah, I mean, Grover's restricted to what he can build because obviously he sold Jackson back in the 80s to, I think it was CMI. And then CMI sold to Fender. And of course, they own all the rights to everything to do with Grover Jackson, pretty much. Like his Dinky, his Warrior, all that stuff. Yeah. He can't do it. Yeah, so all of those, the Rhodes, they've all got to be, basically they've got to be shapes that are identified as Grover's guitars, but they can't look like any of Grover's guitars. Yeah. So, gotcha. You know, and he likes doing the OEM stuff. I think he's at that point in life where he's done trying to push his own stuff constantly, and it's nice to work with new, fresh people that have big ideas and that he can facilitate. And I genuinely think that's he's loving it, you know. Yeah, cool. he keeps the guitars shipping out, and he's got a really, really nice setup. It's really cool to have experienced that and got to meet him and soon to be working with him.
That's huge, man. That's awesome, man. That sounds really exciting. Really looking forward to seeing when that comes together. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty cool. I mean, they'll be so there won't be like people can order whatever they want from us, really. If you want a particular wood or 2 mil shaved off here or whatever. But the Grover stuff will be more standardized. So we'll have, you've got this shape neck, or maybe 2 different shapes, plus these neck woods, plus these body woods, plus these tops, and it'd be very limited because he isn't a custom shop. Yep. They don't do one-offs. They do runs of guitars that are all identical, and our stuff is going to be a pain for him to do when 3 people want red stain but over 2 different types of wood. And so we say it's a semi-custom in the way that you can have a guitar that's unique, but there's absolutely that chance that 2 or 3 guitars out of every 15 might be identical specs. Because they will be fairly limited. But we'll see how we go, and no fixed release date yet. We were planning to do it for last year, but time just got ahead of us, and the GDR range really took off, so we kind of just put it back. And also on Grover's side, the Friedman deal has been significantly bigger than what they expected. So we thought we'd just give him some breathing space, and we've always got time. It's no rush. So hopefully we'll see them. Well, I guess NAMM, maybe before.
Okay, so are you saying winter NAMM again, or the summer NAMM?
No, it's summer NAMM. I mean, I'm saying summer NAMM because it's a year away, and it's like gives me an opportunity to get my finger out of my butt and actually go and do it. But,
and it's summer for us here in Australia too.
But it's going to happen. It's just where do we fit it in the schedule? And we have a lot more time this year compared to last year. The Korean stuff's all sorted now. Yeah, awesome. We don't have the massive amount of workload with that we had in the first year or 2,
so
or year and a half.
Kind of up and going. That's great.
Yeah, it's come down to tiny little things now that we just need to, talk to them about. Everything's all set now. It's almost at the point where, we don't have to do much at all there. So that frees us up to do the next lot of things that we want to do.
Yeah, cool.
I'm one of those pros. So.
Fantastic, man. Well, Perry, thanks so much for your time. So
no worries.
I feel like we've just raced over the whole Ormsby career very quickly. We'll have to have you back on the show, especially maybe when the Jackson stuff's getting close to when we can talk a bit more about the designs maybe or something. But man, thank you so much. And
no worries.
So the best place for people to find you is you're all over social media, Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook. Yep, we've got Facebook, just Ormsby Guitars, facebook.com Ormsby Guitars. Same thing on Instagram. And obviously the website. And we've got the new 3D guitar design tool.
Yeah, that looks like fun. That's on your website itself. That's cool. Definitely
a big time waster. If you're like me and you didn't like your job, go in there and it's pretty cool. It's just beta version 1, and we've got a lot more stuff planned to be released with that. But you got to you can continually upgrade something and never release it, or you can just get it out there and take feedback. And believe it's the first 3D guitar designer on the web.
Okay. Wow.
So but anyway, check that out.
Definitely good to check out. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. Thanks again, Perry. And definitely let's catch up again.
No worries. Cheers, man.
Thanks, mate.
See ya.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right, there's my interview with Perry Ormsby. Man, I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed speaking to Perry. And, man, obviously a guy that's always thinking about, okay, how can I improve this, or how can I grow this side of the business, or, just very forward-thinking guy, and I find that really inspiring. Now, after the interview, Perry told me a few more of the spec ideas he has for those Jackson Ormsby collaboration guitars. So sounds really, really cool. So keep an eye on all of the Ormsby social media stuff for details as they get released. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today on the Guitar Speak podcast. Remember, you can find us on Facebook. or Instagram, or if you go to guitarspeakpodcast.libsyn.com, you can find all of our episodes there as well. You can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, or pretty much wherever podcasts are. I'm finding that you can find us if you search for us. So hopefully we can work with whatever format you like for your podcast listening. All right, well, hey, thanks again for joining me. I will catch you next time. My name's Matt Wakeling, and thanks for listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. Bye now.